Welcome back, Vicarious viewers. My name is Vicente, and it is October, my favorite month of the year. Before I kick off this list, I just want to mention that I will not be including any of the Halloween franchise movies. Of course, the first Halloween movie is a classic, and its remakes and reboot sequels have had their success, but it feels like those movies are on almost every Halloween list, so I'm just going to set those aside and leave some room for some others to share the limelight. With that said, let's get into my list for my top 10 Halloween movies that aren't Halloween. But instead of going a general ranking of worst to best, this list will rank them from family friendly fun all the way to mature adult carnage. So to start off our list, our first two movies will be in the PG category, fun for the whole family. First one up is Ernest Scared Stupid, which came out in 1991. This stars Jim Varney as Ernest and Eartha Kitt as the woods witch who help the local kids tackle an evil troll who's been released from his captivity under a tree for 200 years and is starting to snatch the children from the town, turning them into small figurines so he can unleash his race of trolls on our world. It's a lot of crazy, wacky fun, and I know growing up there were a lot of people that were into Pee Wee Herman, but personally I was an Ernest fan. I love the practical effects in this movie that still even hold up today. Definitely a movie the whole family can enjoy. My other PG pick is, of course, Hocus Pocus. This has been a staple of my Halloween watching since it came out in 1993. Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, Sarah Jessica Parker are the quintessential witch trio, and I think this is one of the few movies that I literally do watch every Halloween. It just has to be. And if I have to tell you about this movie, what pristine rock have you been under this entire time? If you haven't seen it, go watch it right now. But once we start putting the smaller children to bed, then we can stay up and get into PG-13 films. First up, we have The Addams Family from 1991, which has Raul Julia and Angelica Houston playing Gomez and Morticia. They are the best Gomez and Morticia I have ever seen out of any of the shows or movies. And it has an amazing performance by a very somber Christina Ricci as Wednesday Addams. The Addams Family mansion is what every family hopes their home to look like on Halloween. Next up, we have the underappreciated 1987 classic Monster Squad. This is like if the Goonies made a Halloween special where the local town's children have to fight off classic movie monsters like Count Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and the Wolfman as they're invading our reality in search of a magic amulet that will help them unleash the forces of darkness and take over our world. This was such a fun movie with great practical effects and at times got pretty creepy. I definitely recommend finding it on streaming or Blu-ray if you haven't already. I'm actually surprised when I talk to people and mention this movie, and a lot of people have never heard of it. Third up in our PG-13 category is Practical Magic, which came out in 1998. This stars Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman as adult sisters who have spent a majority of their life trying to run from the magic that runs in their family. They have tried to keep it out of their lives, and Sandra Bullock has gone to lengths to make sure her daughters are not exposed to it as well, much to the annoyance of the older women in the family who want them to embrace it. But after some tragic circumstances, they find themselves having to turn to the magic to try to solve their problems and realizing they're a bit out of practice and don't have the best control. The last PG-13 movie on my list is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which is a new movie that just came out this year. You can actually see my review of that in the link above. Guillermo del Toro did an amazing job at bringing the grotesque images from the original books to life in this movie. Some of the scenes are creepy and violent and make your skin crawl, and it all takes place in and around Halloween, which makes it a perfect entry for this list. It'll definitely be a Halloween movie I'll be returning to each year. Well, now it's getting late. It is adults only from here on out. First up on my list for the R-rated category of Halloween movies is Idle Hands from 1999. This has a young Devon Sawa, and he plays a slacker stoner who literally learns that idle hands are the devil's playground when his hand becomes possessed and starts reaching for the sharp objects. Unfortunately for his stoner friends, played by Seth Green and a pre-Daredevil Eldon Henson, don't necessarily make it through the night, but it's a nice nod to An American Werewolf in London that they reanimate and get to egg him on in the rest of his murderous adventures. Thankfully, it is the Halloween season, so no one really takes too much notice of their decomposing bodies and just mistake it for really awesome makeup. Next up for the rated R movies is another recent addition, The Body from Hulu's Into the Dark horror series. The Into the Dark series is pretty much a monthly movie series on Hulu where each month has a different themed horror movie. And their first movie to start off their series last year was in October, so it was the appropriately Halloween themed The Body, which stars a hitman who decides to take out a mark on Halloween and thinks it's the perfect time to drag a body across downtown, expecting that no one would notice. But of course, some unexpected circumstances forces him to hide out with a group of traveling party hoppers, and he has to figure a way to get his body to its designated drop-off point before anyone notices. But of course, as the body begins to stink up and shift and leak a little bit, people start noticing, and those witnesses have to die, one by one. This movie also has Ray Santiago, who you may recognize from the Ash vs. Evil Dead series, and this movie does have that same fun, dark humor to it, which was really enjoyable. It's a really good low-budget horror slasher fare that I enjoyed a lot more than I expected I would. Next up, we have 1988's Pumpkinhead. This has an amazing performance from Lance Henriksen as a father whose young son dies in an accident caused by some local campers, and in his grief seeks out revenge. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize what he's getting himself into because they unleash the horrifying creature Pumpkinhead, who will stop at nothing to exact the revenge that it has been summoned to do. Unbeknownst to Lance Henriksen, he also gets a front row experience to the carnage. A psychic connection with the creature he helped release lets him fully experience and see the deaths of these teenagers through the eyes of Pumpkinhead as they're happening. This, of course, seriously disturbs the humble, good father who was just so angry over the death of his son that he didn't realize what kind of pain and suffering he would be unleashing on the world. So then it becomes a race against time. Will he be able to stop the force he's unleashed before it slaughters all of these teenagers, many of whom had nothing to do with his son's death? I think this is the only movie on my list that isn't explicitly on Halloween, but with a name like Pumpkinhead and the beautiful aesthetic of this movie, contrasting the foggy, cold, blue moonlit night outside to a lot of orange flickering by candlelight interiors, this has the perfect look and feel for Halloween. And finally, my last pick for Halloween movies is the quintessential Halloween movie, Trick or Treat. This movie came out in 2007 and it just screams Halloween. This is a great return to horror anthology movies in the line of Creepshow and the like, but it perfectly interweaves these four stories all taking place on Halloween night, led by a strong cast with Anna Paquin, Brian Cox, and Dylan Baker, and even has a nice little cameo from Hilo for any Battlestar Galactica fans out there. Just top to bottom, this movie bleeds Halloween. Through these stories, each character realizes that the old traditions and rules of Halloween are a little stricter than they thought, and there are those forces out there that will definitely keep you in line if you break any of those rules. What do you think of my picks for my top 10 Halloween rewatch movies? What movies do you think should be on this list that you've enjoyed year after year? Hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos, and thanks for stopping in for this Vicarious View.